Why dark chosen ones must endure tests that light beings never experience. I want you to imagine waking up one day and realizing that everything you've ever been through, the pain, the betrayals, the isolation, the inner battles, wasn't random. It wasn't punishment, and it wasn't bad luck. It was preparation, not for a normal life, not for a peaceful one, but for a purpose so deep, so ancient, it would terrify most people if they saw even a glimpse of it. You weren't picked for this path because you were lucky. You were picked because you could endure what others could not, because you were built for the shadows, and because only those who survive the darkness without losing their soul can carry the kind of power that shakes worlds. That's why dark chosen ones are forged through tests that light beings never have to face. The world loves to romanticize the idea of light. It's clean, it's soft, it's safe. But light alone is not wisdom. Light without shadow is innocence, and innocence cannot lead. It cannot guide others through chaos. It cannot stand firm when the storm comes. That's the difference. Light beings are often born into peace, and their purpose is to reflect beauty, to bring healing and joy. But dark chosen ones, we are not here just to reflect. We are here to transform, and transformation requires destruction. It requires fire. It requires walking into the underworld of the soul and returning with truths most people are too afraid to hear.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You don't get to carry that kind of truth without bleeding for it. That's why the path of the dark chosen one is filled with initiations so brutal they crack the psyche open. We're not just tested by circumstances, we're tested by existence itself. We face abandonment, not just from others, but from entire systems of belief. We are stripped of identities, relationships, and comforts until there's nothing left but raw essence. And even then, the tests continue, because it's not enough to survive. We must choose to stay conscious through it all. That's where the power lies, not in strength but in presence, not in control but in surrender. You've probably felt it, haven't you? That sense that your pain has always gone deeper than others. That no one really sees you, not because you're invisible, but because your energy is too ancient to be understood by most. You've walked through rooms and felt them tremble. You've heard the silence behind people's words. You've been the one who always knew the truth, even when it cost you everything to speak it. And yet you keep rising. That's the mark of the dark chosen. We don't rise because we're trying to win. We rise because we can't stay down. It's not in us. But why must our path be so violent, so chaotic, so lonely? The answer is simple, but it's not easy to hear, because we are meant to hold energy that would burn others alive. We're not here to just shine, we're here to break illusions, to dismantle entire paradigms, to look into systems of power and say, no more. And you cannot do that unless you've first dismantled every illusion within yourself. That's why the universe strips us. That's why we lose everything we thought we needed, so that when the real power comes, we don't misuse it. We don't chase applause. We don't fall for distractions. We become the kind of channel that cannot be corrupted. And that's what demons truly fear, not light. Light is visible, predictable, but the dark chosen one. We are unreadable. We've already faced death in 1,000 forms. We've already let go of what others cling to. We've already been reborn from the ashes. So there's nothing left to threaten, nothing left to manipulate. That's why our path is so hard, because when we finally arrive, we are impossible to stop. But let's be clear, this path doesn't give you superiority. It gives you responsibility. A light being may walk into a room and bring comfort, but we walk into a room and bring truth. And truth doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it shatters, Sometimes it burns. But truth, when delivered from a place of deep embodiment, is the most healing force in the universe. And that's what we're here to channel. Not opinions, not knowledge. Embodied truth. The kind that's earned in the trenches of the soul. So if you've ever wondered why your life has been so intense, why the betrayals cut so deep, why the silence was so loud, it's because you were being initiated, not punished. Initiated into a path few will ever understand. A path where your wounds become weapons, your sorrow becomes sight, and your scars become sigils of power. This path is not for the many. It is for the marked. And if you're still here, still breathing, still watching, then you are one of them. But this is just the beginning. Because what happens after the tests, after the darkness, that's when the real work begins. That's when you learn what you were actually built for. And it's not just survival, it's sovereignty. The secret purpose of pain, how the dark chosen ones are trained for spiritual sovereignty. There's a secret buried beneath your pain that no one talks about. Not because it's hidden, but because most people are too afraid to look directly at it. The secret is this: your suffering was never random. It was never a detour. It was a training ground. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every shadow you've ever walked through was designed to carve you into something few will ever become sovereign. And sovereignty doesn't mean control over others. It means mastery over yourself. That's the true mark of the dark chosen one, not that we're perfect or powerful in the way the world defines power, but that we are unshakable in our inner knowing, that we no longer need external permission to be who we are, that we've become our own source. But that kind of sovereignty doesn't come from reading books or doing breath work on Sunday mornings. It comes from being dragged through the fire again and again until you finally stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this awakening inside me?" That shift is everything. Because once you realize your pain has a purpose, you stop fighting it. You stop numbing it. You start listening to it. You begin to decode it. And what you discover is that pain is not your enemy, it's your compass. It shows you where you've abandoned yourself, where you've given your power away, where a lie has been living inside your body that's ready to be burned away. This is where the training really begins. The tests weren't just there to break you. They were there to strip you down to something real, to bring you to the edge of your own identity and show you that everything you thought you were, your name, your roles, your beliefs, were just costumes. And underneath all of that, there's something ancient, something indestructible. That's the part of you the pain was trying to wake up. And once it's awake, everything changes. You stop chasing validation. You stop fearing rejection. You stop needing to be understood because you understand yourself. And that's enough. That's what spiritual sovereignty feels like. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's the quiet power of someone who knows who they are, even when the world forgets. It's the calm stillness of someone who doesn't need to be chosen because they've already chosen themselves. And that kind of energy, it's magnetic. It bends reality. It calls in truth. It repels anything that isn't aligned. Not because you're trying, but because your very presence demands authenticity. But here's the truth most people won't tell you. The journey to sovereignty is brutal. It requires you to die 1,000 deaths, to let go of every version of yourself that was built to survive, but not thrive. It asks you to sit in the void with no answers, to walk away from people you love, to tell the truth even when your voice shakes. And every time you do, you reclaim a piece of your power. Every time you choose truth over comfort, you rewire your soul to carry more light and more shadow. That's the paradox. The more sovereign you become, the more darkness you can hold. not because it controls you, but because it no longer scares you. This is the training of the Dark Chosen One. We are not here to escape the world, we are here to transform it. And that transformation begins within. Pain was your teacher, but sovereignty is your reward. And once you've tasted it, you'll never settle again. You'll never betray yourself again. You'll never shrink to make others comfortable again. Because now you carry something unshakable, something sacred, something earned. So let me ask you a question only your soul can answer. What would your life look like if you stopped avoiding the pain and started walking straight into it, knowing it was your doorway to power? What would happen if you trusted your path so fully that even the darkness became your ally? Because that's what happens next. The pain dissolves, the fear fades, and what's left is clarity, vision, purpose. But not the kind someone gives you, the kind that can't be taken away, the kind you were born for. The sacred isolation, why the dark chosen ones are pulled away from the world before they return to change it. There's a terrifying moment on the path, one that every dark chosen one faces, and few understand until it's already happening. It's when the world begins to fall away. Friends disappear, lovers drift, family becomes strangers. The things you used to care about feel hollow. The places that once felt safe now feel suffocating. And worst of all, you begin to feel invisible even while standing in a room full of people. This isn't coincidence. This isn't a sign that something is wrong. This is sacred isolation, a divine initiation. A cocoon that doesn't look or feel like one, because before a dark chosen one can return to shift the world, they must first disappear from it. This isolation isn't punishment, it's precise. It's spiritual surgery. It's the universe removing every voice, every influence, every distraction that could distort your inner frequency. It's the forced silence that allows your soul to speak clearly for the first time in years. In that silence, you begin to hear what's real. You begin to notice how much of your life was built on noise, performance, and survival. And that realization can feel like death. Because in a way it is. It's the death of the version of you that needed others to define you. The death of the mask. The death of the borrowed identity. During this sacred isolation, you begin to meet yourself in ways that are both beautiful and brutal. There are nights when you'll cry for no reason. Mornings when you wake up and feel like a stranger in your own body. Days when the silence feels like it's crushing you. But underneath all of that, there's something happening. Something being rewired. You are being emptied not to be abandoned, but to be filled with something far more authentic. That's why this period is so crucial. Because if you skip it, if you try to go back to the world too soon, you'll carry the old program into your new power. And that's dangerous. That's how light gets corrupted. That's how truth turns into performance. So instead, the universe isolates you. It watches you break. It watches you rage. It watches you fall apart. And then, it watches you rebuild yourself with your own hands, your own breath, your own faith. No applause, no validation, just you, your shadow, and your soul. That's the forge. That's where the real ones are made, not in community, not in comfort, but in the cave, alone. That's where you find the clarity no book can give you. That's where you remember what you came here to do, not what you were taught to do. Not what you were told to want, but what your soul signed up for before you ever had a name. This is why isolation is sacred. Because when you eventually return to the world, and you return with a different frequency. You no longer seek to be liked. You no longer need to be understood. You no longer chase anything. You embody everything. Your energy becomes a transmission. People feel it when you enter a space. not because you're loud, but because you're aligned. That's when you start to change things, not by force, not by preaching, but by being. You've become the living example of what's possible when someone chooses truth over comfort, integrity over popularity, and evolution over ease. And maybe that's the real reason why light beings don't go through what we do. Their job is to reflect the beauty of what is. But our job is to burn away everything that isn't. And you can't do that if you haven't first burned away every illusion inside yourself. That's why we're chosen. Not because we're better, but because we're built to walk through fire and come out clean. So let me ask you something. What if your loneliness wasn't a punishment but a prophecy? What if your isolation was the space your soul demanded so it could finally speak? And what if everything you thought you lost was never meant to stay because it couldn't go where you're being called? Because here's the truth, the world doesn't need more noise, it needs you. The real you, the one that emerges from the dark, not bitter but blazing, the one that doesn't just talk about light, but embodies it in a way only someone who's known the dark ever could. The return of the architect, how the dark chosen ones reshape reality from the inside out. When the dark chosen one finally returns from the sacred isolation, they are not the same person who left. They are no longer reacting to life, they are designing it. They've crossed a threshold that cannot be reversed. Their frequency has shifted so completely that the world must now respond to them differently. And perhaps the most powerful truth of all is this: they don't need the world to respond. They are not waiting to be seen, crowned, or celebrated. They know who they are. And from that knowing, they step into the final phase of their path, not to survive, not to awaken, but to architect reality itself. This is the destiny of the dark chosen ones, not to be influencers, not to be gurus, not to be saviors, but to be architects of new timelines. We don't come back to fit in, we come back to recode the field, and we do it from the inside out. We speak differently, we create differently, we love differently. Every action, every word, every moment becomes a precise transmission of truth, not the kind of truth that demands attention, but the kind that restructures energy. And this is the power we were being trained for all along. Because when you've endured the tests, when you faced the void and didn't flinch, you gain something no course or temple can give you. You gain energetic authority. You become someone whose mere presence activates people. They don't know why they're drawn to you. They just feel it. And it's not charisma. It's not performance. It's resonance. It's alignment. You've become congruent with your essence. And in a world built on masks, that kind of congruence is revolutionary. But don't mistake this for ego. This isn't about superiority. It's about responsibility. Because once you carry this level of awareness, you can no longer pretend you don't see what's broken. You can no longer participate in systems that thrive on fragmentation. You can no longer remain silent when truth is being distorted. And yet you are no longer angry. You are no longer reactive. You are no longer in a rush to fix the world. Because you understand the deeper law, reality bends to frequency. So instead of fighting, you become. You embody the new code, and everything around you begins to shift organically, inevitably. This is the return of the architect, not a loud return, not a dramatic one, but a cosmic one. The world may not even notice at first, but reality does. The field does, because you are now carrying a vibration that is not from here. It was forged in the underworld, purified in silence, and now it radiates through you like a tuning fork for higher timelines. And this is how we change the world, not by force, but by frequency, not by control, but by coherence. So what does it mean to live like this? It means you stop chasing and start attracting. You stop explaining and start embodying. You stop trying to wake people up and start living in a way that makes awakening unavoidable. Your life becomes a mirror, a portal, a gateway people walk through simply by being in your presence. And that's not because you're special. It's because you remembered, you endured the tests, you passed the initiations, and now you are the walking evidence that the dark was never your enemy, it was your initiation into mastery. Let me ask you something. What if you stopped trying to heal the world and became the healed version of yourself so completely that the world couldn't help but heal in your presence? What if your greatest contribution wasn't what you said or did, but who you became? That is the final truth of the Dark Chosen One. We are not here to escape the Matrix. We are here to rebuild it, not by tearing it down, but by becoming the blueprint for something higher, something truer, something that was always waiting to be remembered through us. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not late. You are becoming exactly who you were always meant to be. And now, it's time to create.